What's up guys, welcome back to the Let's Talk MMA podcast, and hope you guys are having an amazing day. Thoughts and prayers out to Ben Askren. He has been hospitalized. I think he's on a ventilator because of severe pneumonia, and the doctors are thinking about doing a lung transplant. I don't know if they have like a GoFundMe or anything like that to support him, and I just pray the best for Ben Askren. Hopefully he wakes up, doesn't need a lung transplant, is healthy. Very serious condition. Do you guys think AI would ever replace the fighters in MMA? So instead, we'll have like robot fighters, essentially, who can make the strongest robot as the best fighter. But before that, AI will be part of, at least like MMA training, or doing the new rankings I think the UFC wants to do, that they might have AI score fights. Maybe the matchmakers become AI. And imagine that goes into other sports, like they'll have like robot basketball players with the athleticism that humans can never reach. Like imagine in basketball, these guys are doing like double somersault slam dunks and stuff, and in MMA, the robots are throwing 720 axe kicks with perfect technique. That would be very interesting, but I don't think it'd be great for the athletes. Obviously, right there wouldn't be any more athletes, right? But going to UFC 317, Paulo Costa pulled out, and they're going to be rescheduling his fight with Roman Kopylov to another card. So the next pay-per-view is going to have 11 total fights. There's still some good fights on there. Of course, the main event is great. Co-main event is good. Darash versus Mawanu is a good matchup. Bren Roy Valver, Joshua Van is a good fight. Peyton's Talbot versus Felipe Lima is a good fight as well. Jack Romance versus Gregory Rodriguez. Decent. Terrence McKinney versus Lava Claus is a decent fight as well. Man, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov was a good part of the card, but Costa just can never make it to the fight. The last time he fought was against Sean Strickland over a year ago. Since 2020, the guy's only fought 5 times, which is averaging 1 fight a year, and he doesn't have a single win against anybody. Who's currently in the UFC? Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero, Uriah Hall, Johnny Hendricks Wall, Bench, and Gareth Emila. None of these guys fight in the UFC, and those are all of his wins. Man, he needs to win against Roman Kopylov. If he loses the Roman, which it should be a good fight, I can see how both guys win. But if he loses that fight, he'll be 1-5 in his last 6 fights, with his only win being against Rockhold at that time. But man, Ilia versus Charles is such a great fight. But did you guys see Ilia standing next to Raul Rosas? JR. So Ilia has been talking about how he's 183 pounds. He's too big for featherweight, but he looks smaller than Raul, who's a bantamweight. Charles Oliveira cannot be underestimated. Going into this fight, he is going to be so much bigger than Ilia in there. As I've been saying, he could wrestle his way to a win with, of course, having the knockout potential at all times. Ilia is talking about how he can KO Charles in the first round, but it could go the other way too. Yes, Charles does have the kind of style that can get Ilia a first-round knockout, but the same the other way, it's a car crash, like these two guys are going to be running head first at each other, and one of them is going to go down. But man, I've been watching a lot of the training footage from Ilia Topuria. The guy's looking amazing. At camp boxing, sharp, great, GR, Roman, takedowns. That is such a great fight, man, right now. That's the second best fight of the year, after Driggers versus Hamza. You can't beat that fight. Draggers and Nemza, the only fight that could beat it, which is maybe never happening, is of course Aspinall and Jones fight. And Dana has a new update. Well, not really an update. He's just saying the same thing he always says. Oh, the fight's going to happen, guys. Okay. You've been saying ever since the Stipe fight, and Jon Jones looks like a retired fighter right now, as he said over and over again that he's not fighting Tom Asener. And the crazy thing is, Dana said he'll know if the fight's happening within like a few weeks. Didn't he say? Like over a month ago that the fight is happening now. He's saying he's going to have to see in the next few weeks if it happens, like he's just hoping the fight happens. He's trying to put pressure on Jones to take the fight. But Jones holds all the leverage, so if it happens, it's only going to happen on Jon Jones' terms. Honestly, man, I'm kind of like over it already. I don't care. Like, imagine it was just their plan the whole time to drag it out, this long milking, the anticipation of the fight. I can imagine that with the whole TV deal and stuff, like they could have all got together and talked about it. This way, have a whole new type of promotion for this specific fight. But I doubt it. Dana said like 100 times in these press conferences that the fight is going to happen, but after you hear it like the 10th time from him, it's hard to believe that the fight's actually happening. It sounds more like he wishes it's going to happen, like he wishes that Jones will accept it. But you guys ever see this meme? This is probably what it was like negotiating for Jon Jones, because Ariel Wani said that they did agree to give Jones a lot of money for the fight. But maybe Jones just kept asking for more stuff to see how much he can actually get out of this, knowing that he will never fight Tom Aspinall. He's always talking about how great his Thailand vacation is. Whatever he's doing over there with the Russian fighters, you all remember there, too, and there. Like dancing Dagestani traditional style, the man looks like he's a retired Tom. Asmo should be fighting someone else, and it's not fair, like he shouldn't have to fight someone else. But what can he do? He has no leverage, even as an interim champion. He has no leverage. The only way he can gain leverage is if he beats the other contenders. Like if he beats Sergan, and then he beats Gelatin Almeida, and then he rematches Volkov. The leverage at that point is that he's destroyed the entire heavyweight division. Is that what he has to do for the UFC to actually favor him in all this? It's crazy, but here I am talking about the fight more. I think how they handled the Jones and Aspel fight was one of the most miscalculated things they've ever done. They put all the chips in the John Jones basket, and he just took the basket and ran off with it, still champion, which is crazy. But in other news, we do have some more fights that are in the works. Michael Page versus Jarrett Kenner, which is an amazing fight. Michael Page staying at middleweight when he said before that he wasn't going to stay there. He was going to go to welterweight again. But the Jarrett Kenner fight is great. Stylistically, it's not a wrestler. This guy is going to stand up with him, and I actually think Michael Page beats him. It's hard to just beat MVP with just striking. Like Shara Bullet is a very good striker, and even at his level, he couldn't deal with Michael Page that well. This might be a hot take, but it shows how styles make fights. MVP could give JDM a tougher fight than some of the other top-ranked welterweights. Not that he would win, as I think JDM is the better striker, especially now, but because JDM doesn't offensively wrestle, he would be fighting a masterful striker at full capacity. But it does go another way. Two wrestlers will have an easier time beating MVP than other strikers like JDM. Sean Brady, for an example, would be a disastrous matchup for MVP compared to JDM. MVP striking, it's so good that he made Ian Gary avoid it like the plague. Imagine MVP in his prime fighting these guys, but keep him away from the wrestlers, man. We don't want to see that. He's never going to be a champion. He's never going to fight for the belt, so we don't need to see him against wrestlers. The pathway to a title shot is met with a lot of different fighting styles, but he's not on the pathway to a title shot. So let's give him some fun fights against good strikers. The last thing I want to see is him fight Anthony Hernandez or something, or Reiner Dieter. Let's skip those fights. Give them like Paulo Costa and Jared Cannonier. And also, Ball versus Usman is absolutely the fight to make. But knowing the UFC, they're going to do Bao Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim or something but Bal versus Usman would be such a good fight. Both great wrestlers. Usman has the power advantage, Bal has the volume and a slight cardio advantage. Maybe, I think both in their prime, Usman would have won, but with this version of Bal, I think he's a better striker than V. Smong and could defend all of the takedowns, so I'll lean to Bal winning, but it should be a great one, and this is why the welterweight division is, in my opinion, the most exciting division in the UFC right now. I won't say it's the most skilled. I don't think it's the most skilled but I think it's the weight class with like the most going on. It's the busiest weight class and the most competitive. Well, actually, is on moving up to welterweight could make it the most skilled as well, along with JDM and Bal and Shweka and Sean Brady. Like all these guys are very skilled. So I would say welterweight, after all of UFC history, is finally the best division. And we were never able to call welterweight the best look at all of the guys who are competitive with each other and orbiting a title shot. There's JDM as the champion, Islam Makhachev, the title challenger, Blah, Muhammad, Sean, Brady, Shafka, Rachmanov, Leon, Edwards, Kamar, Usman, Ian, Gary, Michael Morales. That's 10 fighters who are in like a similar tier with each other. Like all these guys can fight each other. That is crazy. This is the best welterweight has ever been, by a long shot, better than GSP's era, better than Usman's era, better than Rick's and Lawler's era, better than Woodley's era, by far. Like that was maybe the worst welterweight division ever. But I think whoever wins between JDM and Islam is who we name this era after. If JDM beats Islam, this is the JDM era. If Islam beats JDM, then it'll be the Islam Makhachev era. So amazing weight class, man. And bro, do you guys see? The UFC 318 ticket prices to sit in the nosebleeds is $400. Is that normal? Nosebleeds are $400. Bro, the cheapest seat is $376. 21. That's what I see on Ticketmaster. That seems like crazy expensive. There's a lot of resale seats, so a lot of fans are actually selling their seats after buying it. Not only the pay-per-views, crazy expensive, you got to also buy a subscription. For ESPN Plus, the ticket prices to go to the events are crazy, man. It just seems like they're milking everything out of this. And you guys see on the pound for pound rankings that Alexander Toja is still in the same place. He's actually number 10, with Jack Della rising above him, which is crazy. Pentosa is not even being given the privilege of moving up in the rankings leading up to his fight. Every new champion will be ranked above Alexander Pantoja, besides Tom Aspinall, because he's John Jones's rival, and they can't have that. They have to put him at the lowest possible. They even like Pantoja more than Aspinall. I don't understand how. JDM, who just became champion, is ranked above Pantoja, who's the second longest reigning champion, currently behind Islam. He's 9-0 against his divisional rankings. He has to rematch everybody he fights at this point, and is very highly skilled, and is some of the best. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the UFC, there's no reason he should be ranked number 10. I think he should be in the top 5. And if Pantoja beats Kai, cover France, they might drop him one ranking at number 11. This, as a pound-for-pound rankings, should be, I would say, Islam, Makhachev, Morab, Dival, Ilia Topuria, Drix du Plessis at number 4, Alexander Pantoja at number 5, Alexander Volkanovski, Tom Aspinall, John Jones, Mamang Uncle, and Jack Damatina. Those are your champions. Right now, JDM, who just became champion by beating Bal, should be the lowest ranked champion, right? He doesn't really have like other big wins other than Bal. There could be a debate between him and Uncle Iviv, but I think Uncle 4 should be higher based on the fact that he has more ranked wins than JDM does. He beat Alex Rakic, Walker Smith, Santos, Volkan Krylov. He went to a draw with Jan Lihovic. That's 7 ranked wins at the time. JDM beat Bilal Burns Holland, and I guess Randy Brown's good, but that's it right now. JDM should be the lowest ranked champion, but he has the opportunity to rise to the top 5 if he beats Islam. The way they ranked it is just all messed up. Why is John Jones number 3 if these are current rankings in like the last 5 years? Let's say Jones has 2 wins in the last 5 years. Cyrillin's a great win, but he beat Stipe in the other 2 wins, is not above any of those guys. Honestly, I think I'm even being charitable by having him above JDM and Uncle, because in the last 5 years, Uncle beat Alex Rokek Walker, no contest. With Walker draw with Bohovic, beat Smith Santos, Uzimir, Krylov, and Kuzilaba. Honestly, John Jones could logically be a lot lower in the rankings, I guess. I'm putting him above them because he's a champion with 1 title defense, I guess. But now, I'm thinking about it. More Jones probably should be below Uncle Live, at least, right? But there could be an argument he's below JDM as well. Another debate could be between Morab and Ilya Morab, but none of the guys that he beat are on the level of Volkanovski and Holloway. So yes, I do have Morab above Ilia. He has more title defenses. He has more ranked wins. He's beaten multiple of the best fighters in the world. Shana. Ali, twice. Umar Nurmagomedov. Henry Cejudo out of his prime, but still a good fighter. Peter Yan Joel Aldo, also out of his prime. Ilia. Bean Hollow and Volkanovski, honestly, keep him afloat at the top of the rankings. He also did beat Josh, Ian, and Bryce Mitchell. He did move up to lightweight and beat Jay Herbert. He also has a win against Wisef Zal, so I can see the argument for Ilia being above Morab. But as of right now, I would have Morab above Ilia if Ilia beats Charles, though he's easily ahead of Morab. And depending on how the Islam fight goes with JDM, there could be a debate there too between him and Islam, because just like Ilia, Islam is also moving up. If both of them win, Islam still going to be number one. If Islam loses and Ilia wins, there's a very good argument that Ilia could be above Islam. Because what is the definition of pound-for-pound skills that transition to different weight classes? Fighter and his last 3 wins would be against Charles Holloway and Volk, 2 different weight classes. It's very interesting now, of course, if Islam wins and Ilia loses. I don't think the rankings change, but it'd be nearly impossible to take Islam's ranking at that point. Like Morab would have to move up to featherweight and beat Volkanovski or something. But for Alexander Toya to be ranked number 10 behind these new champions doesn't make any sense. There's a non-champion that's ranked above him as well. Alex Pereira is above Pentesia. I think Pentesia should be in the top 5. He should be around Dreas. So this is the debate between number 5. Should Drex or Pentesia be ranked above? So Dreas has 2 title defenses. Pentesia has 3 Dreas, beat Strickland twice. Odesana, Whitaker, Brunson, and Till, that's 6 ranked wins. Pentesia beat Kai, Asokura, Steve Brenna, Royval twice, Brenna Moreno, Alex Perez, and Mel Kemp. That's 7 ranked wins. The Odos Nagna, Strickland, and Whitaker wins are all very big, and Onosen and Whitaker are top 5 middleweights of all time. Pinto beat Moreno, who's also top 5 flyweight, but then none of the other guys he beat are there. You know, Brennan Royval is very, very good. I think one of the most skilled flyweights of all time. Manel Keep is good, but he still doesn't have that big wind. Ersk is good. Anakora still has to prove himself in the UFC. Alex Perez is decent. I think it's very close, but I might have Drake is above Pantoja. Because even in 25 years ago, Pantoja did lose to Askarov. You guys see some of the fights that Dana and the UFC announced. We'll get to the good fights first, and then gradually go to the fights that nobody asked for, but they made the effort to put on the fights that we didn't want. They've pretty much become the antithesis of what the UFC used to be. Tim Elliott is fighting Kai Asakura on UFC 319. UFC 319 is the Dryas and Hamza fight. That's a good fight, going to be testing Kaya Waker's takedown defense again. Tim Lee is a tough grappler, and we get to see if Asakar really is UFC caliber. Then, Brian battle over. Understandable why Battle's moving up to middleweight. He missed weight for his last one against Randy Brown. But I think he's better at welterweight. You just can't be missing weight like that. You know he missed twice at welterweight, once against Gabriel Green, the other one against Randy Brown. But that should be a good fight nonetheless. But unlike him, Zoltan is better at middleweight, so it's going to be a very interesting fight. Jessica Andrade versus Lupita Gorins. It's another solid fight. Karine Silva versus JJ Aldrich. Okay, skip that fight. Dana also announced Peter Jan is going to be fighting Marcus McGee, and Moser Evov is going to be fighting Aaron Pico, both on the Robert Whittaker versus Reiner Durkard. Now, despite the circus matchmaking, they're number 2 versus number 13, and Yan versus McGee, and then a number 4 versus UFC debut in Eve versus Pico. I do think these two fights are going to be exciting, but Jan actually said that he could have waited and would have gotten a title shot, but he didn't want to do that. So he wants to fight, and he's willing to fight anybody. McGee accepted the fight, and now they're fighting each other. So respect to both guys. I thought they were just pulling names out of a hat and had these two fight each other. Now, Eve versus Pico seems like a different situation, because Volk told the UFC that he wants to fight Eve, but for some reason Eve is fighting Pico. And then, after Volk said that Jair is a potential next opponent, so we'll see. Maybe Volk is going to wait and see what happens with the winner of that fight, because if Pico beats Eve, he's going to fight for the belt. So maybe Volk waits, or he's going to fight Jair. But regardless of the rankings, I do think both these fights can be tough for the contenders. McGee, just like Jan, is an excellent striker, has a very good shift combos, excellent counter shots, which would be his path to victory. They're pulling from Jen's offense, countering him, and just flow with the combos. I think those two fight at a similar rhythm. It's going to look like a dance out there. It's going to be a very interesting striking match if Jan doesn't decide to wrestle though. And Aaron Pico has a very good style to beat. Mosorivov, explosive wrestler, one-punch knockout power, good boxer, and the fight is 3 rounds, so he can explode for 2 of those rounds to defend the takedowns and try to get the knockout. Even though he's making his UFC debut, it could be a very interesting fight. Now, Eve loves chain wrestling, could get him to win, but that could be a tough fight, especially because Pico is continuously getting better. But regardless, man, these aren't the fights that the fans wanted. It just seems like the UFC doesn't put on the fights that the fans want to see. It's like the opposite of what they used to be. The UFC was all about putting on the best fights, but us, as the consumer, we're telling them what fights we want, and it's like 90% of the time, we don't get them. The matchmaking has been so different. Top contenders and even champions are fighting guys making their. With John Jones calling out Alex the whole time he wanted to fight Alex, just for Alex to fight Tom. That would be hilarious. On other news, you know Conor McGregor is out there punching random people at a club. It's great to see him in prime form. Back on the winning column, first win in 5 years. And it was a club in Aziza, bro. Probably really took a pill in Isa. I don't know what's going on with Conor. Has money ever gone to someone's head more than Conor McGregor? Featherweight Conor McGregor will truly be like a mythical fighter. I don't know what happened to that. Conor, who was so inspiring, very motivational, an excellent fighter, and spoke with a clear mind, and talked against partying, said it was a weakness to the soul, like he was. Very different man watching some of Conor's interviews when he was at featherweight. Is so depressing. Sometimes Conor inspired so many people around the world, and he's essentially like gone against a lot of the stuff that he used to preach about. I don't know, but what is really cool is that Kill Roundtree is getting custom shorts. Bangkok ready shorts for Kill Roundtree, and they look really cool too. And I'm a big fan of this, like, let's get all the ranked fighters custom shorts. They all should have their own. I think I also saw Shafkat's. It's blue and yellow with the Kazakhstan flag or whatever on it. That also looks really cool. I don't know what Jamal Hill's would be, so some of these fighters, they have like their own personality. That reflects from their shorts. But then when you get guys like Jamal Hill, like what would Jamal Hill's custom shorts be? It just states all of his excuses he's ever made around his shorts. I don't even know if they would have enough room for that. But I'm also wondering, why didn't they do one for Jamal Hill for this card? They did it for CLs. And then, like, Rafael Vaz should have some cool ones based off of Azerbaijan. And maybe something with like a Muay Thai design to it too. Curtis Blades. Imagine like a Mortal Kombat theme. That would be cool. Where Bangkunve is just like a steroid needle and not have all the dollar bills all over his shorts, but would it be American dollars, or would it be the Brazilian currency? What? Would Derek Lewis's custom shorts be something Texas related, right, Robert? Whitaker, probably like the Grim Reaper on his shorts, or something like that, Ryan. Durr would be, I guess, something Dutch. Pretty cool. I'm a big fan of the custom shorts. Right now, I think the best Ilia Topuria are kind of sick. Oh, Morebs are cool. Morebs are clean, man. The orange and white they got. The Georgian crosses, and then a Georgian proverb. What does that say? A glorious death is better than a miserable life. This proverb reflects the strong Georgian cultural values of honor, bravery, and dignity. The design of the shorts also includes imagery of a knight battling a tiger in George, further emphasizing these themes. Wait, what? There's a knight battling a tiger in St. George. Oh wait, there is. It's right there. It's very transparent on the shorts. But I never noticed that he has a horseman battling a tiger on his shorts. No, dude. These are probably the best. UFC shorts, Israel Adasanas, are pretty cool. Has the lightning all over it. Dryasses are really cool, as well have the South African colors, jean. Lees are actually really cool, like the color scheme of it. Red, black, and yellow. But I don't know what the designs are. Looks like tree branches on fire all over her shorts, and it has like the Chinese sigil weight hold on their actually dragons, okay, dragon tails on fire. I think those are some of the best shorts. I'm going to be honest, man, I don't like theme of it, but it looks so low quality, man. I think it's supposed to be like that. Same with Alex's, man. I don't like Alex's shorts. Again, I understand the theme of it, but just looking at it doesn't look great. Alexander Volkanovski's are really cool. It's like a mix of Greek and Australian. I think Shevchenko's looks very custom-like. I don't even know what the reference is. It's a bunch of leaves and a dragon and a bullet. The bullet's understandable, but why is there a dragon on there? I think it looks cool. I just don't get the reference. Juliana Penna had a custom shorts. I didn't even notice she had custom shorts, I guess. I was just paying attention to Kayla, destroying her out there. They look pretty cool. They're very like simple. Looks really cool. Though Patty Pimblett, of course, the orange vintage shorts, bro, get steepy shorts out of here. How could they do the man so dirty with his custom shorts? They couldn't give him the Croatian colors. They have the pattern of his vintage shorts. That's like paying homage to Merkel, Crockup, and they just made it black and gray. So lazy, bro. If they just gave him the Croatian colors that him and Crowup both had, it would have been top tier. Shorts, are very lazy, bro. Like, I don't know why, Max. Holloway's are cool. Like they actually tried with his I don't get. Dustin's, it's like a bunch of leaves. Maybe something Louisiana reference. At least they give us some good design, you know? But then you look at Justin Gates, you look at Michael Chandler's, and you look at Stipes. They're all just black and gray. Gatici and Chandler have the American flag on theirs with no American colors. It's all just black and gray and white. Just put the American colors, bro, and it would look amazing for both Gaki and Chandler. But it's crazy that none of them have the American colors. Besides Holloway, no other American does. I don't understand why. And speaking of American, they absolutely put a lot of effort on John Jones. Dana made sure whoever made those shorts to do their best. So it's the red, black, and white that has the Christian cross. Philippians 4:13. On the side, it's either lion or tiger designs on it. Looks very cool. Leon's looks cool. Is just there, all pretty much like one or two colors. It has the English flag, Jamaican flag, and a crown flag. I don't know what that is. All of it's like a different tint of green. And for the pound, 4-pound, #1 fighter in the world, honestly, man, I don't think Islam's are that great. It's just a map on his shorts and a traditional dagger on the side. Again, the reference is cool. All of these guys have cool references and theme for their shorts. But just to look at it, just the design itself, I don't think it's that great. I'm going to be honest. Man, if you just put a map on their shorts, I don't think that ever looks good, Bren. Marino's is decent. He has the Aztec dragon. I think it looks decent, bro. Do you know how sick they can make Hamza shorts with the wolf and everything, bro? They can't drop the ball on Hamza shorts. Hopefully they have his before he fights. Dries, but big fan of the custom shorts. They should absolutely do it for every fighter, or at least every ranked fighter. And with that, let's go to the questions. So we're going to start with Susan Tickup. If Michael Chandler fought smartly, made adjustments according to opponents, and used wrestling to his advantage, what would have been the alternate results of his fights? And would he have become a UFC champion? No, I don't think he would have beaten Charles. He fought Charles well, but I don't think he would have beaten him. I don't think he would have beaten Justin Guy. Maybe because Gates's takedown defense has always been very good, unless he's fighting Khabib or something. Most other guys, he's defending their takedowns. He did get taken down by Fies, which is very interesting, but it's like one of those you don't expect a striker to shoot a takedown kind of thing, you know. And that's why it's very important for strikers to also implement takedowns in their skill sets, because you never know when it can actually work. Against a good defensive wrestler, but I can see how he could beat Justin Guy. Wrestle him more, try to get the back rear naked chokes, all that stuff. He could have beaten Dustin if he didn't just throw haymakers at him and overcommit with the takedowns. But I don't think he would have beaten Dustin. I can see how he beats Guy, but I would still say Guy beats him. He would have beaten Patty, and that's pretty much it. Your second question, who will be the UFC champion? In 2028, in every weight class, remember when I predicted the top 5 ranked fighters at lightweight? In the next 4 years or whatever it was, I did actually very well. I mean, it's very hard to have any sort of accuracy on predicting anything at MMA for the next 4 years. And at least I got some fighters in there Islam wasn't even champion at the time. So let me see, 2028 champions, I would say. Tom Aspinall, 4 heavyweight. Mongumd Unclave, 4 light heavyweight. Hamza, 4 middleweight. Sean Brady, 4 welterweight. Armin Sarukin, 4 lightweight. John Silva, 4 featherweight. Umar, 4 bantamweight. Joshua Van, 4 flyweight. Women's bantamweight might be gone by then, but I'll say normal. Dumont. I think Cale Harrison would retire by then. Natalia Silver for flyweight, and Jing Lee for strawweight. And then your third question, how sort of the sport of MMA will be if the retired fighters got to be the judges or someone who has trained and know the fight game from inside. What's your take on it? Keep up the good work, brother. Thank you so much, man. And I think it would be a good idea, but the only issue could be bias, because retired fighters train with a lot of different fighters, and if they're judging for one of their teammates or friends, there could be a conflict of interest there. So that's the only thing that could hurt the sport, and that would be one of the worst things that can happen for scoring fights. If they can get fighters who are unbiased, or they make sure not to have the retired fighters score for their friends' fights, and they'll have others do it instead. That would be cool. They'll go to Troy Harting. 3-part question in regards to Bo Nickal. When Bo got finished by RDR, the amount of people celebrating it online was insanely high. I don't think I've fashioned like Ronda Rousey, Kobe, Covington, McGregor, etc. So for your first question, does he deserve the hate that he gets? What is deserve when it's subjective? You know, fans are going to love and hate any fighters that they want. I don't see any problem with that, honestly. If a lot of people think that Bo Nickal was being cocky and overconfident, and that's the reason why they started hitting on his loss to RDR. It's part of the sport, and it's been around forever. When fighters talk a big game and they lose, it almost always is mocked or joked or memed or whatever, is just part of the sport. It's like the high risk, high reward aspect. If Nickal went out there, and then he actually beat Hamza and the other top contenders. Instead of the hate that he has, he would get a magnitude higher of a support, like everybody would be singing this guy's praises. It's similar with Ilia Topuria. Ilia is that guy. Ilia is the guy who talked trash about the top guys, but he beat them. He actually did what he said he was going to do, and so many of the fans love him. He has so many supporters, and people think that he's the guy that can beat Islam. Now can you imagine if he lost? Imagine if he lost to Josh EMTT. Let's say he gets finished in the first or second rounds. The same thing would have happened to him. When fighters talk a big game, they're raising the stakes of their fights. And I think overall, it's good for the sport to at least get a reaction out of the audience like that, because no fighter wants to be the guy that nobody cares about. Right, Bong? Nickal is going to rebound and try to win again. And everybody's going to watch his next fight, supporters or haters. It's part of the sport. So many fighters were hated throughout their careers, like Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping was hated by everybody for so long until he won the title. Well, actually, when he beat Anderson Silva, it showed his perseverance. He got knocked out. He thought he lost a fight. He stood up, continued the fight, and won. Then he wins the belt on 2 weeks' notice against a guy who destroyed him before. Michael Bisping is a fighter that everybody at least paid attention to. And that's generally a good thing for most fighters. Nickal doesn't want to lose. That Nickal still wants to be relevant in MMA. So the cheers or the boos, I don't think it's necessarily a positive or negative thing for the fighter. It just depends on what they want. Like if Nickal wants everybody to like him, then it could be seen as negative. But if Nickal doesn't care and he just wants the noise that comes with it, then no matter what, he's getting support or hate, he's going to enjoy that. So the deserve of the hate, it just depends subjectively, according to Nickal himself and of the fans. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know Nickal, but he did talk a lot. He did say, like, he would beat Hamza and Robert Whittaker and all these guys. And he didn't beat anybody to that point. How could he be talking like that? Like he really needed to win his fights. And I'll say this, if he loses his next one as well, then the hype train is 100% derailed, because then nobody's going to care about Nickal. And the other thing too is, what if RDR actually reaches to the top of the rankings? Like, what if he actually fights Darius? The fight everybody wants to see, the plot armored fight. Who would win that? Like, if RDR actually reaches to those heights, then the narrative would shift on Bon Nickal. Losing to him, it'll go from he was fraud checked to okay. He just lost to one of the best, just like other guys did. The RDR loss alone wouldn't be enough to say it was a fraud check. He would have to lose to someone lower level than that. Because in that scenario, Whitaker losing RDR wouldn't be a fraud check either, right? Then it shouldn't be for Boone. Nickal, too, again. And I think there's another aspect to why so many fans don't like Bo Nickal is that he's gotten preferential treatment in regards of where his fights have been placed, like he's been on main cards of some of the biggest pay-per-views, and sometimes even over former champions ranked fighters, and he's fighting like Vel Woodburn. You know, he was on the main card of UFC 300, one of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history. He was the opener of the card against Cody Brundage, and who was on the prelims, Yuri Prohaska, former champion, Aljamain Sterling, former champion, Davis and Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, former champions, Bobby Green and Jim Miller. Longtime veterans of the UFC. He was on the main card over all of those guys for that one alone, like, not to mention the other cards too. And the only time he wasn't on a pay-per-view is the fight that he lost to RDR. So that is another aspect of it that people don't like Bo Nickal for. But I think it's more the UFC I don't understand. To hate Bo Nickal for that cause he didn't choose to be on the main card. UFC thought that he was going to be a big star, and they were trying to push him as one. So they put him on the main card of the pay-per-view, so everybody knows him and want. He did get a lot of fans, but the hardcore fans of the sport, they all know those former champions and other ranked fighters and stuff. Like, it's crazy to see him on the main card and not Davis and Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Why is that on the early prelims, the first fight of the entire card, when Bo Nickal's on the main card, multiple spots over them? Like, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. It's disrespectful, honestly. Or Kelvin Cotta versus Aljamain Sterling. Why is that not on the main card? You know it's a business. They're trying to sell Bo Nickal as a future star. He lost to RDR. I'm not going to say like his aspirations of reaching the top are gone, because it's just one loss, and again, it could be that RDR is one of the best middleweights, so it's going to depend on what Bo Nickal's next fight is going to be like. And your second question is about that too. So how fast of a turnaround do you think Bo Nickal should have in regards with his next fight? I think you should train everything, striking, wrestling, grappling, without taking a fight for a few months at least. Like, focus on just getting better, because training camps are not entirely to get the fighter to level up. Their entire game, training camps, are usually to prepare them for a specific opponent, not to improve them overall. A lot of that is actually in between camps that they get better, as a fighter training camps are like, where they're specifically training for a certain style. They got to cut weight. And all of that, like the focus, is different. Bone Nickal needs to get better as a fighter. So no focus on an opponent. Just focus on his own skills to get better. That's what he needs to do. And not only his striking, but also his wrestling. His wrestling is lacking in MMA. I mean, the guy couldn't even take down Jamie Pickett without a low blow. Come on, man. It's not just a striking. That takedown should not have been as difficult as it was. I would say he should fight toward the end of the year. Maybe in like anywhere from September to December. And then your third question, which fighter should he face next that allow him to gain a combination of good experience, wins, and momentum? It should be Eric Anders or Andre Mooney. Then Rafael Vieira. Then maybe someone just outside the top 15, like Nickal, Alexia, Chuck, and then another shot to get into the top 15 after all those fights. So I can see him fighting any of those guys. Might be Eric Anders, might be a tough fight. He needs a tune-up fight. Again, he needs to begin his next momentum here. And I think Anders is too difficult of a fight to do that with. I think Andre Mooney's going to be a close fight. Adelph is going to be a tough one, too. I would say. You know who he should fight? AZ Diaz. AZ Diaz really isn't that great. He's definitely worse than those guys, I think. That would be a good next fight for him. And then, if he beats him, then give him Adolf Vieira. And if he beats Hadol Vieira, then Mule Lexia, who would be like somewhere in the top 20 of the middleweight division. Right. That'd be great for Bon Nickal. So, great questions, man. And then we've got 2 Nano Peach, Hey Weasel, with Marab being so dominant. Do you see any champ being as dominant as him right now? No, besides Gene Wei. I think Wei is the only one that even is that dominant. You know, Morov is just a very, very special fighter. The cardio that he has is something that you literally cannot train for. You either have it or you don't, or you take EPO. There's no other way for it, and cardio is one of the absolute best attributes to ever have for a fighter. He's well-rounded enough, he's skilled enough as well. In all areas, again, he's not one of the most technical guys at any martial art, but he's good enough everywhere to at least hang with his opponent for the first round or two, and then start taking over the fight. But of course, that would only work if he's fighting someone who also is well-rounded, like Shauna Ali for an example, is not well-rounded, and he can impose his wrestling very early in that fight and make it difficult for Ali. But if you fight someone like Umar or Jan in a rematch, or maybe even Sanhagen, like all these guys are well-rounded, so he wouldn't be able to steamroll them. Besides, because of the pace issue, he wouldn't be able to steamroll any of those other guys like he did to Ali. Like imagine fighting Yodong. Yodong is very explosive. He's very fast. He has one-punch knockup power. It would be a different kind of fight for Morab, because Yadong is not tall and long either. Like he's very compact, very similar to Morab. In fact, Ali said the same thing. He said Morab felt very compact and strong out there. Yadong is similar, so whenever Morab is like colliding with Yadong, he could get knocked out in any of those moments. It's a very, very dangerous fight. It's almost like when he fought Cejudo in the first round. But I don't think Cejudo is in his prime. He got rocked in the first round by Cejudo. He ran into the left hook and got stunned by that punch. So imagine that with Yadong, but way more dangerous of a striker. So Morab can have some difficult fights. I'm not going to say he's going to be totally dominant throughout his championship reign. Like I do think the Umar fight was very competitive. It was not dominant. The fourth and fifth rounds were becoming more dominant as a round, but not the entire fight. He lost the Amito right. The first 2 rounds, if you lose the first 2 rounds, it's not dominant. I think the Yan rematch would be a lot more difficult than the first one was. I think. Is land a flying knee or something crazy like that? He needs to knock on Morab. There's no other way he beats him, I think. Sanadong can keep up with Morab for the first 2 rounds before he starts gassing out, so I don't think that fight will be totally dominant, but maybe, like the 5th round, could be a 10. For Morab, you know, but I will say that out of any champion right now, that he is the most dominant. Jones obviously is not, well, actually. Tom Aspinall is Tom Aspinall more dominant than Morab? Because where Morab is winning decisions, and some of these rounds are dominant, Tom _ is putting these guys out within like 2 minutes on the regular. So actually, I will say Tom Aspinall is the most dominant champion right now. Second is Morov. Mumin, Uncle Live. I don't think he's going to be dominant, but he could probably beat everybody. Dryas. No, absolutely not. Even if Amza becomes champ, I don't think he's going to be as dominant as Marab is. JDM. No. If Islam's champ at welterweight, I don't think he's going to be as dominant. Either Charles or Ilia at lightweight. No Volkanovski. No Fatusia. No so, I would say. Thomas Aspel is the most dominant champion right now. Then it's Morab, and then it's everybody else, and then you're second. Question: how are you, and how's your family? Great man. Thank you for asking, and hope you guys are doing great as well. And then your next question is Kayla versus Nunez. A factor that a lot of people are not considering is that she is 37. Do you think that's a factor? Yeah, absolutely. Especially not having fought for so long. Nunez might not be the same at all. And if she isn't, Kayla's going to take her down and rip her arm off. I don't think there's a single fighter that could stop any submission from her if she grabs an arm or a leg or a neck like she's taking it home with her. And there's not a thing the fighter could do except tap out, like when she got that camera on Juliana Pena. It looked like Juliana could not do a single thing at all. She was trying to fight it, but half a second in, and the fight was over. I know a lot of people think she's on steroids. Honestly, dude, she does look like she's on steroids. And I think she would say that too, but she was like that in the Olympics. She won gold twice at the Olympics, and if she didn't test positive over there, I don't think she's on steroids. Imagine going to Olympics twice and never testing positive. Then your next question: Conor at UFC 205 would have beaten Khabib or Tony that day? Time for all three. What do you think? No, he could have beaten Tony, but he would never be Khabib. Tony would have been an interesting one though, cause I could see how both guys beat each other. Tony's just like a better version of Nate Diaz. He could do what Nate does. He has a similar reach and all that, with more punching power, and I think he could have drowned Conor in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. I would say Tony would have a better chance of beating Conor, but I can see how Conor TKO was him as well. But Tony as prime was so tough, very hard to finish. It would have been interesting, but I actually don't think that UFC 205 Conor was the best version of him. I honestly think it was featherweight. Featherweight Conor was different parity to the weight class. He was punching harder, like he was knocking these guys out. He knocked out Jose Aldo with one punch. He didn't do that a single time when he fought at lightweight in the UFC. Even against Eddie Alvarez, he needed like a million punches to get that guy out of there. He couldn't finish. Nate Diaz, at 170, he hit a B with some good shots. Never rocked him. He hit Dustin with some of the cleanest punches I've ever seen from him, and didn't knock him out. Now Dustin did say after that, if Conor followed up from those punches, he would have finished him. That's how hurt Dustin was. But still, when he fought him at featherweight, it took one punch to put him down. One punch against Jose Aldo to put him down. One punch against Diego Brenda, featherweight Conor. I think was the very best, he fought differently. He did have that karate stance and stuff, and he was very elusive. Threw a lot better kicks in that weight class as well. Like, he wasn't just a puncher, and he had the power compared to the weight class, which was more effective than at lightweight. There is an argument for Dustin to Conor as being the best version of him. But I think the power difference puts his featherweight version ahead, so the argument for Dustin to soar would be that his boxing technique was better than ever, which it was, and that the lack of leg kick defense was always a weakness against southpaws, no matter if he took the boxing stance or the karate stance, so it doesn't really make as much of a difference for the stance improving his defense. That is generally the argument for it. But I think featherweight Conor is still better. And then your next question is Mick's debut, the worst debut from a champion from another promotion, Patchy Mick's. Yeah, Patchy Mick's UFC debut may be one of the worst. Like, I've watched his fights at Bellator. He's looked so much better over there now. There is the argument that he's fighting Bellator fighters, so of course he's going to look better. But some of the Bellator fighters he went up against over there were also UFC fighters. He fought Sergio Pettis and Kyoji Horiguchi. Both of those guys were some of the best when they fought in the UFC. Now it could also be because they were so much smaller than him. Both those guys fought at flyweight, but even just watching his fights, he's fought better than that. He's always been flat-footed and quite slow with his striking, but not shooting takedowns consistently in any of that. And I think it was against Kyoji Horiguchi, who was very fast, faster than Mario Batista. He threw a straight at Patchy Mick's, and Mick's slipped the punch wrapped around his back and went for the rear naked choke. Like, you didn't see any of that against Mario Batista. Batista was throwing a lot of the same kind of punches with slower speed too. Horiguchi and Mick's just did not react to the punches at all, like he was Mario Batista's heavy bag out there, like he was there to just take punches to the face. And then he started to come alive at the end of the third round. It's like, whoa, where was that guy this whole time? Maybe it was the octagon jitters, which a lot of fighters have said are real. I mean, even like Rampage. Quinton Jackson said when he came to the UFC that he also had octagon jitters, and that's a guy who fought in Pride in front of tens of thousands in the Super Saitama arena in the biggest MMA organization in the world at that time. And he had octagon jitters when he came to the UFC. And if someone like that can get it, I'm pretty sure Patchy Mick's felt it as well. And we have to also remember that Eddie Alvarez got torched by Donald Cerrone in his UFC debut. He had like a good 20 seconds of the first round where he just rushed down with Cerrone in the clinch, and Cerrone always had a very slow start to then destroying Alvarez after, and he eventually became champion. So we'll see with Patchy Mix. He's still in his prime, and again, he hasn't fought in a year. UFC debut. I'll chalk it up to Octagon jitters until his next fight, which is crazy because in Chandler's debut, he finished Dan Hooker in the first round. Like, that's crazy, right? And then he fought for a title and made it a very tough fight for Charles Oliveira. Justin Gaethje came from World Series of Fighting, and he has some very good performances. So yes, most Bellator fighters aren't good, but with Patchy Mix being one of the best, from there, I will wait on his next fight. For any further opinions on how good he is, great questions, man. And then we go to Daman. Rob, thoughts on the Mighty Guru show? I haven't watched it, but I think it's really cool to see an MMA YouTuber collab with a fighter to do a show with. I think it's awesome and might see more of that with other YouTubers, make it bigger on the scene as well. I think it's a very good thing, but if it's good, I'll watch it so you guys can let me know. We've got a modern day stoic top 5 greatest ducks in MMA history. Is that enough space for John Jones to take all 5? So we got John Jones ducking, Tom Aspinall, Bones ducking, Inanu, sexual chocolate ducking, Stipe in 2021, the Epo King ducking, USAD under an octagon and steroid heat ducking, chill, son, in a short notice. So, yes, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall is the biggest duck in UFC history. Daniel Cormier ducking Stipe Miocic and instead fought Derek Lewis, and he also wanted to fight Brock Lesnar instead. But yes, he ducked him to fight Lewis. Michael Bisping ducking Romero, GSP ducking the Johnny Hendricks rematch, and honestly, John Jones ducking the Dominic Reyes rematch and the Chilson and short notice fight. He literally didn't want to fight him, and they canceled the entire UFC 151 card. But he did fight him later, so. And then we go to Austin's Oasis. Top 5 favorite books. Favorite books. I only have 3 favorite books. The Bible's number 1. The Book of 5 Rings and The Art of War. And then you all Castro. Imagine you have to create the best fighter ever, but they have to have at least one major Achilles heel. How would you structure this dream fighter? Wait, so am I trying to make the Achilles heel a very big weakness? Or am I trying to make him as unbeatable as I can while he has a weakness? So, Crane, the best fighter ever, I would say, if he had like Khabib's grappling, Ilia striking, Marav's cardio, Marv Fiori's chin, Alex Pereira's power, but his Achilles heel is that he's deaf. Is that big enough of an Achilles heel? So, if he can't do deaf, then I would say his Achilles heel would be is that he's as slow as Jake Collier. I think that's a pretty big Achilles heel, but I still think he'd be unbeatable. Then we go to the Haitian sensation. If Ilia loses, the Charles will Ilia vacating the featherweight belt be the biggest career sabotage since Henry retired in his prime, dude. Henry retiring in his prime was, man, he came back like 3 years later or whatever it was, then out of his prime. He didn't get anything he was trying to actually negotiate for, because it seemed like he retired to get like a big fight or whatever, or get a lot more money, and it didn't work like he should have just fought. Man, why did he retire in his prime? I think Pseudo's legacy, it would have been so much better if he never retired. But yes, if I loses to Charles him vacating his featherweight belt, I would say would be the second biggest career sabotage after Henry Judo. The reason why it's not as big is because he can always fight a featherweight again, and there's not a lot of guys that would beat him. It also depends how he loses the Charles. If he gets starched first round knockout, who knows if he's the same fighter after that can change Ilia as a fighter, because remember, he's still undefeated. He's never experienced a loss in MMA. Charles has lost 100 times. A loss to him doesn't do anything. He just gets better after. And in that scenario, the first loss of Ilia, let's say it is by a finish, like a head kick, knockout in the first or second rounds, because that's when most likely he would get finished. Who knows what his confidence would be like after. And just like we talked about with Nickal, Ilia is still raising the stakes of his fights by talking a big game. He's saying that he's going to run right through Charles like it's nothing. And if he gets code like that on the grand stage, main event of a pay-per-view, who knows what that would do to Ilia's seemingly unshakable confidence. The aura of superiority that he has would wither away. So yeah, I would say if he loses to Charles, and especially by knockout, him vacating the featherweight belt would be the biggest career sabotage since Henry Suda retired. Great question, man. And then Angelo, the death metal, should the UFC implement speed-wearing octagon boys for female fights? Kind of makes sense, to be honest. Is that you? John Jones, didn't they do that with Elias Theodoro? Rip, but they didn't put him in a Speedo. So no, I don't think the UFC would ever do that. Unless somehow John Jones became the UFC president, they would have. Muller, Munchak, is it time for Sean Ali to move up to 145? I don't think so. I might have the unpopular opinion, but I think Ali gets destroyed at 145. He just said how strong Morov felt. Bro, Morov's got nothing on Volk's strength that fights different, dude. Like, Ali is not doing a thing to get out of that grip, and a lot of his natural advantages At bantamweight, go away. At featherweight, he doesn't have the reach advantage over everybody. Most of the guys actually have the same reach as Ali at featherweight. Some of those guys are the same height, whereas at bantamweight, it's like you got one or two guys that can match the height and reach of Ali at featherweight. It's maybe around half of them can, and it's also a very skilled division. So I think Ali gets destroyed at featherweight. He should stay at bantamweight and just get better fight the other top contenders, improve as much as he can, and that's pretty much it. I think he could stay in the top 7 for his entire career, and they would. Pac-Man, should Octagon girls be allowed to win the performance of the night bonus, or would it be unfair as Red D. Cruz would win it in most nights' performance bonus? Like, what would they have to do different from each other to get a bonus? I mean, they're holding cards up, so I'm guessing the hottest one gets the bonus. In that case, Red De Cruz and Brooklyn Wren easily win the bonuses every time. 100% their leagues. Above the others, they get Ashen Warden. At this point, what could revive the UFC and bring them back into the limelight rather than this low point they're in now? It would just be undoing things. Give the fights that the fans want to see is the most important one. Number 1 contenders should be fighting champions. No more undeserved title shots. No protecting stars. Get out of the apex. Work with the commission to change the rules. There's no reason fighters should be winning with eye pokes and headbutts. That makes absolutely no sense, and that's pretty much it. Be organic with the superstars. Don't force on the fans as if they have to like them. I think those are all the most important things of what the UFC needs to do. There's a TV deal as well, and I think regardless, people are going to be watching wherever they go. But the number 1 issue that they have is that they're not putting on the fights that the fans want to see. The UFC used to live and breathe by that, and not only are they not doing that, it's like they're making an effort to not give us the fights we want. Like, if Yair is fighting Volk, I just don't understand the thought process of skipping over the Lopez fight. For Yair, they built the fight off of one press conference themselves. It was there for the UFC. Just grab contracts, give it to both fighters, and have them sign him. That's all they needed to do. Just make the fight. But rather than that, they might give Yair a title shot. All the problems that the UFC has right now, they have inflicted on themselves. Nobody else did this to the UFC. They did it to themselves. The fans have been telling the UFC on how to fix their product for them to watch it. The consumer is telling the producer and what they want, and they still don't do it. We want the integrity of the sport to stay intact. That's the most important thing for the sport. But it's frustrating to watch every single time. It's like a new fight, and nobody asks for it. It doesn't make any sense, and if anything, it just damages the brand even further. They went to Team Nast. Who's the worst fighter you've ever seen in the UFC CM? Punk, obviously. And then maybe like James, Tony, and the women featherweight, bantamweights. Those would all be like some of the worst fighters the UFC's ever had. Then we get a PDP Daily. What is the most overrated performance in MMA history? Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz was definitely overrated because Cruz won some rounds. I think he won 2 rounds on the scorecards. Cody did get a 108. But the narrative from the fight was that Cody dominated. He had some of the best moments. The highlights are definitely Cody's styling on Cruz. But a lot of people don't talk about the success Cruz had in that fight, so I'll say that is one of the most overrated performances. Still a great performance. He beat, at the time, the greatest bantamweight, but the way that people talk about that performance, I think, is overrating it heavily. I'll also say Morov versus Umar, because again, it's similar with Cody. People talk about it like as if Morov dominated him the entire fight. When he lost the first 2 rounds, it was 3-2 competitive fight. Umar to beat him. That Morov's performance excited the narrative. After, maybe that's what it is, but it still is overrating the performance. Itself great performance, but again, overrated in that sense. I think Jamal Hill versus Glover Terrara was also very overrated. A great win for Jamal Hill. But let's be honest, man, Glover was washed at that point. It was his retirement fight after a war against Yuri Prohaska. He was in his 40s, very slow out there. And after the fight, people were saying, like Jamal Hill was such an insane light heavyweight because he beat the most washed version of Glover ever. O'Brien Ortega's performance against Alexander Volkanovski was overrated in the sense that people thought it was a close fight. I remember all the talk about that fight after, people were saying that Ortega gave us such a close fight with Volk. He has some close moments in winning with the guillotine and the triangle choke, but the entirety of the rest of the fight was Volk beating him up. I always disagree with that one when people were saying like it was fight of the year too and stuff. There's no way a mostly one-sided performance can be fight of the year. Ortega literally had like 2 moments in the entire fight. And I think in saying that Ortega made the fight close, it does underrate Volk's performance because Volk dominated him more right, and he almost finished him at the 3rd round, which honestly should have been a finish.